When Stephanie Harper decided to open Harper Learning Academy in Byram, Mississippi in August, her goal was to create a small, personalized educational setting in which her daughter would thrive. Conventional classroom environments weren't a good match, and they weren't working well for the daughter of Harper's colleague, Tekeeta Funchess, either. So Harper and Funchess had been longtime teachers in the Jackson public schools before they left their jobs to provide educational consulting services to public school districts. And as they worked together, they realized their daughters were experiencing similar challenges in standard school settings. So they decided to build what they couldn't find and create a warm and welcoming microschool where children can thrive. Stephanie Harper and Tekeeta Funchess, welcome to the Liberated podcast.
Thank you.
Thank you so very much.
I'm so glad to have you here with me today. It's wonderful what you're doing. I had an opportunity to visit Harper Learning Academy recently in Mississippi, and I'm just sort of blown away by what you've built and the story of kind of how and why that came to be. So I want to get to the launch of the microschool in just a few minutes, but let's start back with sort of your pathway to education, then to education consulting, consulting to various public school districts throughout Mississippi, and then ultimately to now being a microschool founder and the kind of the plans for expansion there. So Stephanie, let's start with you. You have been a longtime teacher and literacy coach in the public schools and in some private schools. You have a PhD in education. How did you get into education in the first place?
Wow. Well, believe it or not, it was an area that I was trying to actually avoid. My bachelor's degree was in business. I come from a family of educators. And so that was just not the path financially that I wanted to go. My goal was actually to be a corporate lawyer. But in my last 2 years of college, needing to make money, I'm originally from Chicago, but I came to college here in Mississippi, and knew either I'm going to have to do something major or go back home. And a friend of mine told me about an opportunity. Hey, why don't you get this nice little job at this little private school? And to let me, meet, and didn't know that stepping on the grounds of that private school connected to really my passion. I fell in love with a gift of teaching that I thought I was going to avoid. And so I taught middle school at that private school, and then the door opened for me to join at a church that I attended. They wanted to start a school, so I said, hey, I'll jump on board with that to help them with the small church school. And then from there got the opportunity to now become a second grade teacher in a public school, which is Jackson Public School. After 2 or 3 years of being in that situation, I had what they call an open classroom. Because of the fact that many of the strategies that were being taught from professionals and researchers, our school was chosen kind of like a pilot school for different programs, and therefore my classroom became one of those pilot programs. So it was an open classroom because now people will come and observe me implementing these strategies, and specifically in literacy. And from there, was recruited from there to now become, my principal was like, you're affecting only 25 children. I want you to affect more children. So she made me, provided me with the opportunity to become the literacy coach for the entire school. But again, knowing that this school was part of a pilot program, this program was a connection between Jackson State, the State Department, along with Jackson Public Schools, to again, try to build more teachers and educators. And so therefore I became what they call a Mississippi Learning Institute coach. So from one end to now training teachers. And as a result, through there, got part of a program that was interested in transforming schools across the state of Mississippi. And they recruited me to be the Dean of Instruction and a part of that program. That led to now being a Dean of Instruction in a particular school district, where now I'm being recruited by a consulting company and said, hey, let's try you here. and was there for a few years. And that's when I met Miss Funchess. I was over the literacy area, English language arts, and Miss Funchess was over the math. And that brings us all the way till today.
That's amazing. So a far cry from corporate lawyer, but definitely a blend of education and business, and certainly the education entrepreneurship that you were doing when you founded your consulting firm, and now, of course, with the microschool. So interesting to see that pathway. And then, Tekeeta, for you, you are more in the STEM fields, the STEM side of things, whereas Stephanie is more of the literacy, language arts. And your graduate degree, master's degree is in computer science. You taught mathematics in the public schools in Jackson. Tell us about your pathway to education.
Well, thank you so very much. As I'm listening to Stephanie, it's amazing how our stories are so similar in scope and nature. I got my BS degree in mathematics at Tougaloo College. Yes, we both went to Tougaloo, but we didn't know each other at the time. Of course, again, I was not going to be in education. That's what I thought. I wanted to be a computer programmer. And so I began working on my master's degree in computer science at Jackson State. While working on my master's degree, I needed to earn a little income. And my mom, who actually was working in human resources at Jackson Public Schools District, told me about possibly working at one of the schools. This is about 24 years ago when computers were really being integrated into the classroom. And so I was initially hired as a support person for teachers to teach them how to incorporate technology into the classrooms. My principal needed a math teacher, and she saw my transcript and she said, I need you in a math classroom. And so I started, that's where my education in mathematics began. I've taught 6th, 7th, 8th grade, and of course, Algebra 1. I can state that the 12 years that I taught Algebra 1, I've never had one student to fail the Algebra 1 test. I did the alternate route, took 3 courses, and then I got certified with the state of Mississippi. Moved into, again, similar like Stephanie, principal saw the great things that I was doing inside of my classroom, and I was promoted to becoming a math coach for the school district. And then as I was working as a math coach for the school district, I became a math coach at a particular school, Byram Middle School. And so I worked there up until I moved into the private sector of consulting. I worked for a company that I provided math services, and that's where I met Stephanie. And I laughed because we were in the same theater pattern. Jackson Public Schools is a very, very large school district. And so it's amazing that we've never met before that time. Again, like I said, we went to Tougaloo together. We taught in the same theater pattern, but we never met each other until our very, very first day of doing a professional development assigned with this particular consulting company. And so time progressed. I was at that consulting company for a few years, and then I decided to create my own consulting company and began working and doing freelance work across the state of Mississippi, which led to us starting Harper Learning Academy.
So great. Yeah. And continuing to do that consulting, both of you, for the district, but also launching the microschool, Harper Learning Academy. So maybe we can talk a little bit more about that, because certainly you had this inside look at what was happening in conventional schools, and your children had gone to private schools as well. So this was something that you were seeing, sort of weaknesses in conventional schooling models, broadly speaking, that weren't meeting the needs of your children. And you had also, again, been these sort of model teachers in the public schools that others were looking toward for guidance and support. and instruction. And so I think I would imagine that those perspectives of kind of seeing what was happening in your children's schools and then seeing what your experiences were both as classroom teachers and as consultants gave you the kind of perfect lens to think about the ideal learning environment that you wanted to create. So maybe you could talk a little bit about the origin story of creating Harper Learning Academy. Stephanie, do you want to share that?
Yes, well, as Tekeeta stated, even as teachers, we were very passionate about our students. We did not use the educational jargon, all kids are successful, and just took that lightly or can be successful. We, in our classrooms, our children became our children. Again, we're talking about a feeder pattern where our students didn't come to school, as they say, ready or had the perfect home environments. They had really life challenges. So when they came into our classrooms, we were their protectors, we were their moms, we were their encouragers. And so that was the advantage that we had, was that we were able to close the door and be to those students whatever they needed, along with providing academics. And so therefore, we had that one-on-one experience that it can happen. Success can happen when you have adults that focus on the needs of the children, whatever it. But it really became even major when now I have a daughter, and in my arms, I'm committed to her having the best life ever. I was that mom that, of course, on the literacy side, knew all the research about having conversations with your child and building their vocabulary and exposing. And so at a very young age, I would search out different educational institutions to partner with me as a parent to ensure whatever my child need would happen. But the first time something happened was, again, you're talking about a parent who would read to their child, speak to their child, do all these things. And now she's in kindergarten. And from August to December, along with all the background information and support, was struggling with reading. And I could not understand that because, again, supposedly as a parent, plus an educator, was setting a perfect environment for her to succeed. And it was then in the December that I actually, not even the teacher didn't discover it, but I discovered and said, hey, I think there's something going on. Do you mind going on? Let's do some tests. And that's when we found out then that she had dyslexia. Now, again, my choices of her academic road from day one had been chosen. I specifically chose this school because I wanted this type of environment. And then also the advantage to this school was that they did have a dyslexia program. So again, I'm thinking I'm doing everything as an educator and as a mom to make sure my daughter has the best experience. But yet year after year, even after the tutoring, even after all the additional, and had caring teachers, honestly, where she was. But by the time she got to the third grade, I heard a message from the principal that broke my heart. But it was from the heart from a beautiful place that the principal said to me, she said, Miss Harper, we care about you and your wonderful daughter, but we refuse to continue to take your money, and your child is not the best fit for here. And you can only imagine a mom who from day one was trying to make sure this story or this statement never exists. It broke me. And I didn't know where else to go because here I am traveling all over the state, training teachers, supporting teachers, as they say, paying it forward to make sure that other children are creating an environment and receiving an environment. And then here I am with my own personal situation where the very place say, we can't help your child. And so I think just from that was I have to find something. And I kept searching. And then I thought I found a place, perfect place. I was finally happy. And Miss Funchess, Tekeeta, is shaking her head because I was on the phone crying to her. And she's like, we're going to make it. We're going to make it. And I find this place and I think my heart is settled. And 2 years in, the school closes. And as a result of it closing, now I'm like, where do I go from here? Which led to, if you can't find it, then build it.
Just amazing, and a true entrepreneurial story, right? Of finding gaps and trying to solve a problem in your own family and your own community by building something new and better. And Tekeeta, you had a similar experience where you weren't finding the right academic fit for your children and for your daughter especially. And like Stephanie's daughter, who has now been at Harper Learning Academy for a few months and flourishing, your daughter had a similar experience. I wonder if you can share that as well.
Yes. So we had very, very similar experiences. Jordan, I had no idea that Jordan even had any issues. She started private school when she was 2 years old, and she was flourishing. She was doing so well, academically gifted. But there were challenges with her staying focused and her staying on task. And so we transitioned her to another private school that we thought, again, as parents and being educators, we just wanted to create the safest space for our children to thrive. And it was at this school in particular that a teacher pulled me to the side and had a really, really courageous conversation with me. And she wanted me to have Jordan tested for ADHD. Again, she wasn't struggling academically, but there were just some focus challenges. And so this happened when she was in the first grade. She was 6 years old. And we went and had her tested. And of course, her test was positive for ADHD. And so we didn't put her on any medication at that time. We just kind of, now a lot of things made more sense. And so as a family, we did a lot of research because I've heard things about ADHD that wasn't so pleasant. And so now you have a child with this issue, and you want to do everything you possibly can to ensure that she's successful. And so when we got to about 4th grade, she started really now struggling academically. And so we moved her, and this was right when COVID happened. And so we decided to move her again from a private school, and we put her in one of the specialty programs for Jackson Public School District. But there's a specialty program for academics, Obama Magnet. And again, there, because she had been in the private school sector, she just struggled. And so as a mom, those strategies that I was using and teaching other teachers, I started using with her at home a lot. And they were being successful, but it was difficult to give the consulting world and the parent world, being a parent at home and teaching your child, it became very, very challenging. And so again, having a conversation with Stephanie, and light bulb moment, why don't we create this space for our own children based upon the needs that we know each of them have? And the success story is the school started in August. Jordan had been on anxiety medicine and ADHD medicine for about 2 years. Now I can say, being with the school, 3 months? She does not have to do counseling for anxiety anymore. And she is officially off of ADHD medicine and anxiety medicine. And so again, as a parent and an entrepreneur, I think that the decision we made was a great one, because we are actually seeing evidence of it and progression of it with our own children. And lastly, for her mom to be a mathematician, math was not her strongest subject. And now she is thriving in mathematics. So just very, very proud of what we were able to accomplish in a short period of time.
Oh, you should be proud. It's just such an amazing story of success and transformation, really. And Tekeeta, if I can just follow up a bit on what you were saying with your daughter's story. You know, there's we currently have a youth mental health crisis in the US that's really been exacerbated over the past couple of years. You know, sky high rates of youth anxiety and depression. What do you think it is about this amazing learning environment you've created, this microschool, that facilitates that sort of healing and that and overcoming some of that anxiety and those challenges?
Well, it's all about perception. Even for me as a parent who knew that I had the resources, I had the education, I knew that regardless of whatever deficiency that the world said she had, I was going to do my absolute best to make sure that she was successful. So even with me knowing that, the perception of any child with any disability comes with anxiety. It comes with a lot of emotions. It comes with what is going to be the perception of me? Do you not think that I am capable? Do you not think that I will be as successful as my counterpart? School was a big anxiety mechanism for her, even though she has parents that are loving, parents that are encouraging, and parents that understand, you know, you're not going to make an A on everything, and it's okay. But as long as you did your absolute best. The one biggest thing that I can say about our school is our kids feel safe. They're safe and they're loved. The very first week of school, my daughter came to me and she said, "Mom, I was sitting and having lunch." Did you hear what I just said? Having lunch with her teacher. And she described to her teacher, "You know, I have a diagnosis of ADHD." And her teacher just responded, "I don't see ADHD. I see a child that learns differently that I'm going to support." So think about that response. And I really honestly don't think the teacher knew. I just think that was just the automatic response. But that was one of the things that my child couldn't wait to come home to tell me. "You know, my teacher knows I have ADHD, Mom, but she doesn't think that that's a problem. She says that I'll be able to learn." And so the perception of what we do with kids that have a disability, whether it is we do it on purpose or we don't do it on purpose, because a lot of times, even as I work with teachers in the public school sector, you know, this child is a sped child, or, you know, this child has a 504 plan. And so I don't think it's conscious. I think it's subconscious that sometimes we think or we have minimum expectations of our children. Our expectations of our children at our school is limitless. And we tell them that every day. We will not let any disability or anything stop you from being exactly what you want to be. And so that is a part of our mission statement. None of their and I'm even trying to find the proper word for it, because we don't use those terms. Nothing is a this, nothing is a not. Everything is an opportunity and it's a gift. And so when you start thinking about those things as being gifts, now you receive the gift and you're able to start thinking about, how can I use this gift to effectively change my society and the world that I'm in? And so once that mind shifts, anxiety leaves, because now it's not the perception that I'm less than, it's the perception that I can do more with the gift that God gave me.
And Stephanie, that is really built into the mission statement of Harper Learning Academy, right? I wonder if you can talk a little bit more about what your vision was there in creating the microschool.
Absolutely. You hit it directly. Our whole mission, and the reason why I brought that up, because also when we hire teachers, especially if they've already been in the field, we have to detox them with this philosophy. We remind them of the mission statement. So what are we referring to? We believe that we were created with gifts and talents. The way our brain was made, our inclinations was created specifically for you to fulfill a specific assignment or purpose on earth. So therefore, our goal is to take away, as we say, the dis, and now empower you with the strategies that you need to become or to be this person. So if I think differently, the goal is we are aware that you think differently, but we're going to teach you the why you think differently. And we're going to also teach you the strategies that are aligned to the way you think to empower you, because the way you think is connected to what you are supposed to do. And so therefore, that's why we don't use labels, because we've noticed that the labels are the things that limit. Label limits. And so therefore, these young children, we're talking about the anxiety. It's sad that you have to have an 8-year-old or a 9-year-old to say to you, I can't do this. And then you're wondering, where did that perception come? Is because they are used to being put in categories, unfortunately, and especially in the educational system, and categories where this is the A group, and this is the B group, and this is the C group, and this is the D group, and this is an F group. And we want all of you to be successful, but F group, we're gonna put you over here and only give you F knowledge and teaching, because remember, you are AF. And so now you have children who are really trying to fight. I don't want to be in that group. I want to be in the popular group. I want to get into the group that gets the rewards. I want to be in the group that makes mom smile and give me $100 every time I make an A. And they find themselves now going through a rat race of trying to become someone, not that they were supposed to be that person, but can't even discover, you know what? I have unique gifts that belong to me. If someone can teach me what that is, and then teach me how to apply it, and then teach me how it is purposeful. We teach our children, you don't compete with each other, you compete with yourself. Your goal is to become the maximum of who you are created to be. And so when they realized, that was one of our first data session with our children, when they took a test, we told them, now when in assessments here is not about grades. Assessments here, it means the same thing when you're 6 years old and mom puts you against the wall and draws a line and say, hey, you're right here. But mom is hoping 6 months later that when she measures you again, you grow. But only grow to the highest of your potential. And just that environment, knowing that I am successful when I fully become who I was created to be, it takes away the anxiety, because now you're knowing that even the teacher is teaching you to become better of who you are, versus me looking at my neighbor and saying, I need to be like you.
Just amazing. And so Harper Learning Academy right now has just over a dozen students. You have 2 dedicated teachers, plus the 2 of you who are on site as well, although you continue to do the consulting work on the side. And Stephanie, you've said that you don't ever want to go more than 20 students in your school, but you do want to grow. And like many microschool founders, you want to grow horizontally instead of vertically. You don't want to create a large private school. You want to create many small microschools. And I wonder why that is. You know, what is it about this small space that's so appealing and that you think is so impactful?
Because, and even research shows this, anybody in the education field would know, when you're literally focusing on designing and learning an environment that meets the needs of children, you have to recognize that the number of children brings about the number of needs. And so if I increase the need, I don't have then the capacity as a teacher or as a owner to make sure that that need is met specifically for that child. Too many students in one spot or in one space now brings frustration to the teacher, and therefore the child now will not actually get the specific support and I would say educational plan that is best for them. It also gives the teacher the time to actually study the children. We do not want a one size fit all. So even if you can imagine one micro school here, but even though we have the same mission, the culture of the next micro school will look different because it's all based on the uniqueness of the students. And so that is why we are so committed to many micro schools, but keeping it very small so that we can truly, by research, prove, that this is the best way that students can learn and grow, but also be committed to not compromising the brand, because now I'm not on purpose anymore. I'm now just trying to be big, but that's not the goal. It's to transform lives and empower. So if I can't do that, I'd rather do that with 5 students versus doing it with 1,000 students and not actually facing or accomplishing the goal of our assignment.
So, Tekeeta, you and Stephanie consult to public school districts and do kind of teacher professional development and help improve the educational setting in those spots. And certainly size is a big constraint, a big challenge for these public school districts. But I wonder, what are some of the other challenges that you find that today's public schools encounter? Because when I visited you, we had a long conversation about this, that the teachers are trying their best. They're doing everything they can, but it's sort of the system and the constraints built into the system that make it challenging for them. I wonder if you can talk a little bit more about what some of those challenges are.
So a lot of times the teachers' hearts are totally in the right place. A lot of times I give great strategies and teachers are all about, oh yes, that will work with, and they have little kids in mind. That'll work for little Johnny. But the school system does not allow for that creativity, because we're trying to, instead of create the system around the children, we're trying to put the children in a certain box. So for example, if Jordan, and I'm gonna use my own child as an example, needs additional support, we can easily make adjustments for her in our setting that, number one, allows her for more time, allows her for smaller time in this instance. They do a lot of projects. And so we do a lot of real world application with mathematics. So the why behind the mathematics automatically comes versus preparing them for an assessment, right? And so which one do you get the most value of? Can you read a chart and able to understand the stock market? Or can you go through and be able to do percentages on an assessment? Well, we're actually thinking about everything as, what is your purpose? What is your purpose in life? So we get to make adjustments to our curriculum. In the public school system, they don't get the opportunity to do that. We get to make adjustments to the time. In the public school system, they don't get an opportunity to do that. And then because we've been in the shoes of the teachers, and we understand teaching and learning through our consultation companies, we also know that the planning and preparation to be prepared for all of these different learning modalities is very, very important. So we ensure at our school that our teachers have proper planning time in order to be effective with the clientele that you have, because you're now learning the way they learn. And so in order for me to be prepared for all of these different learning types and all of these different gaps in instruction, I need the planning and preparation time. So a lot of teachers are not even being offered that in a public school setting. And if they are, they have minimum time. And so what happens? You're doing it at home. You're doing it during a holiday. You're doing it at night, which in turn, instead of this being a joy for me, it becomes more of a teacher burnout because I'm doing everything I can, but I'm required to do it in a certain box that doesn't allow for me to be flexible. And so that would be one of the biggest things that I find, is because, I wanted to reiterate, there are great public school teachers. There are great teachers. There are teachers who want to do the very, very best for every child they see, they touch. But because there's so many limitations, they're doing the best they can in that environment. And so when we sat down and started talking about what our school would look like, we took all of those things into consideration, and we wanted to make sure we removed any limitations that would allow us to not be with our mission statement. And our mission statement is for every child to use their learning styles as a gift.
Yeah, you've really created this ideal learning environment. And through research and practice, you've been able to show that it's possible and have that proof of concept. Not only are the children in your microschool flourishing academically, but also emotionally. And your daughter, Jordan, Tekeeta, is a case in point of now no longer needing to be on anxiety medications. And so it makes me think, how do we get this to more children, right? And certainly you're trying to scale. Your plan is to have more of these microschools throughout Mississippi. And which brings me to the question about access. How do you make this model more accessible to more students, both in Mississippi and across the country?
Yes. Well, the first thing, it's been amazing. For example, the opportunity to actually be on this podcast, to kind of share it across the United States, that in this little town in Mississippi, there is a microschool and microschool leaders and founders here in Mississippi and now there's a network. And so that is one of the goals, is to continue to connect with others, to get the voice out, to get the story out, to get the plan out, so that we will have that networking ability to now have access to spaces and areas. We are still doing research to ourselves as far as perfect locations and making sure that the audience or the clientele that we want to serve, that the next spot we choose is a perfect spot. It was very interesting. Upon us starting the school, remember, we also are consultants, and it's amazing. We'll go to different areas. Of course, Mississippi is full of rural areas, and we will go to these small rural areas where we are working with principals there, and they would say to me, Dr. Harper, if you open one here, we will run it for you. So in a sense, even in our own work, we are able to share within the public school that what we are saying and the strategies that we're providing actually work. And we tell the story of our school, and then they're now saying, whenever you're ready, we will run it for you. So that also is our hope, to continue to get our story out as we're doing our research, finding the locations and making the next step, but also using platforms like this to open the door for us.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up the network. It is remarkable to see in Mississippi this burgeoning microschool movement. We had a chance to have dinner when I was visiting in Jackson with several of the microschool founders and aspiring education entrepreneurs in the greater Jackson area. I was able to travel to different parts of Mississippi and meet with other founders as well. And it's just great to see that energy and enthusiasm for these non-traditional learning models and innovative microschools. And I know that Lise Marcelino Lino, who runs Embark, which is a project of Empower Mississippi that's really designed to incubate and accelerate microschools in Mississippi, is really doing some great work and trying to build up that community of founders throughout the state and really help support all of you. And I think that that's right, that access is a part of that in terms of finding locations and figuring out where there's parent demand and where there's people willing to help out to create more of these. Certainly expanding the supply of microschools will lead to greater access. But we're still competing with tuition-free public schools. And I wonder, how do you make this model, which is so transformative for so many kids, more widely accessible from a financial perspective? And that could be with your own microschool or just generally, what are your thoughts on that?
Yes, well, let's use my own microschool as an example. One of the things that our ultimate desire is that any student, that finances will not be a reason why a student would not be able to attend our school. So financially, as that is one of the reasons why we have the for-profit business, because the for-profit acts as the foundational financial support provided for the schools, so that in our goal, even in our business plan, that is still the goal, that we have our for-profit and to enable us to now build other schools, okay? But then also, because it is a non-profit organization, we also aim at grants and other resources to ensure our tuition is very minimum. It basically the tuition that we charge, and you multiply that by the number of students, and keep in mind, some of our students are tuition free because we've had donors to come in, and now we have like a scholarship program where some of the children's tuition is completely paid for. But even the amount of money that it comes in is enough to pay maybe one teacher's salary. So like I said, in our business plan, we look at from the for-profit, how the amount of money that is donated into building the nonprofit, but also, again, through Embark, we've come across various programs that allows for grants and support. And I'm so excited because there are things that I've never heard of as it relates to the financial support out there of the idea of for founding schools like this. So our goal is to continue that process, continue the work, but no matter what, by way of the business plan that we have, that is our goal, to make sure that even to the extent that any child that needs our service, they will receive our service. So money will never be an issue.
Yeah, I love your financial model and how the consulting practice is so synergistic with the microschool, and also in some ways an employer-based microschool, which is also a new trend we're seeing across the country, with employers recognizing that this could be an employee perk, that parents are looking for something different for their children's education, and that maybe having an on-site microschool could be something to at least explore. And so, Tekeeta, I'm curious what your thoughts are for the future of education. You've been involved with creating this microschool, obviously seeing the profound impact it's had on your daughter, and then still going into these public school districts and seeing what's happening there. What do you think the future of education looks like, say, over the next 5 to 10 years?
I really think that there's a shift in the thinking. And I think that shift was very, very evident during the year of COVID. COVID was one of those things that allowed us all to take a moment, take a breath. We're at home now. You're starting to now look at what is my child learning and how's my child learning it? Where are those frustrations coming from? As a parent, it's transparent to see that your child is trying their very, very best to participate in this conversation, but for a number of different reasons, it's not happening. And so I think that it's going to really, really take a lot of people to come to the table and really think, are we truly doing what's best for the children that we serve. And until that shift happens, there's always, and I think we did the research long time ago about the bell curve. There's a group, and I have two that's on both extreme ends. I have a son that's right now still in public school, but he is in the fifth grade, but he can perform at the level of an eighth grader. So he's very advanced. And so a lot of people don't get to tap into his potential because he's already there. And so if I'm a fifth grade teacher, I'm just kind of still doing fifth grade material. I know he's going to do well. And so that's a group of students that we're leaving behind. And then you look at the other end of the spectrum, there's the students that have these disabilities that we're doing our best to support, but because of all the limitations, we're not able to serve them as well. And so if you look at that bell curve, what's happening is the majority of the kids right there in the middle are the kids that are actually benefiting from where we are right now in education. And so until we shift to specialty programs, until we shift the thinking, until we remember that an assessment is just not one way of gauging how successful a child would be in the future, because college and career readiness standards state that we're preparing them for college and or careers. And so sometimes we forget that and or, because everybody's not going to be the salutatorian in their class. Everybody's not going to be make the ACT score to attend a certain college. But you know, you can be just as successful with a trade. I mean, actually, some of them are more successful than me because they don't have to pay back student loans. So there has to be a shift, and it's going to take a lot more people like Stephanie and I to sit and have a think tank on how we can support these two sets of students that we have not been servicing for a number of reasons. And so if we really want to make the public school system successful for children, we're going to have to make some adjustments and some changes in order to make sure that we're really servicing all.
Stephanie, similar question for you. You know, what do you see as the future of microschools over the next few years and its relationship to conventional schools?
I actually am very hopeful that that there is going to be a shift where micro schools will be what I would call the common, because even when you look at the generation of young people, I use the example, back in my day, you always had to have a middleman to do anything, you know. But now children today can actually be on YouTube and become a YouTuber. And now, when you used to have a music manager to now to help you, they're now famous. In other words, they have taken away the middleman. They have now are able to now have a dream and have one avenue, and then boom, they're now, that dream is coming to pass. And so I am saying we're living in a world that the traditional method of anything, because of the new generation, that we will not work. It will literally be destroyed. And so we need to be prepared for that reality. So that's why I believe that micro schools, I apologize, micro schools are the future in my eyes.
It's great. So the website is harperlearningacademy.com. If my listeners want to reach out and connect with you, what is the best way for them to do that?
Yes. So of course you mentioned the website, harperlearning.com. Also, we have a Facebook page, Harper Learning Academy, and our contact information is located in both of the social media areas. And also, you guys can reach us out to us, if you want to visit. My email is at harperlearningacademy.com. And Ms. Funchess is the same. And so if you want to visit us, we just like my classroom was an open classroom, our school is an open school right here in Byram, Mississippi.
I hope that listeners take you up on that offer. Harper Learning Academy really is a magical place. It was so wonderful to see what you've built there. And I'm so excited to see many more of these microschools throughout Mississippi, launched by you and others, as well as across the country. Stephanie Harper and Tekeeta Funchess, thank you again for being on the Liberated podcast.
It has been an honor. Thank you so much.